just don't have enough billable hours. So if they only have one transaction every 4 or 5 months, then yeah, you're only working about 3 hours a week or 1 hour a week. Yeah, $354 an hour. If you have one transaction a year and you work 48 weeks, you're making 1 hour per week on average, right? Now maybe you make it in a couple months' time, but that's why it doesn't feel like you're making that much money. But this is what you make per hour, okay? High-level performers understand that and they leverage that. And they're saying, wait a minute, Rob, you just told me I'm in here every day and I'm doing all this crap. My coach tells me, here's my job, do these things. And when you do these things, I make $354 an hour. Why aren't I doing those things more often? I'm like, that's a good question. Why aren't you doing those things more often? Well, because maybe you just didn't know that it made you $354 an hour when you did those things, right? So what are those things? This is what it makes us. Now, out of the 48 hours, you get broken into a few different categories. In order to make $1 million, I need all these people, right? I have to do 4 voice-to-voice touches. So if everyone in my database, if I reached out to them and had to make a connection, now there's 100 different reasons to contact people, but I'm just building a relationship. I can teach you what to say, when to say it, how to say it, all that stuff. You make the call 4 times a year, once a quarter, and you just touch base voice-to-voice, and all the automatic emails and everything are happening. How long does that phone call take? Once a quarter, on average.
After you get rolling, just a couple minutes.
Couple minutes, 5 minutes for some, right? Let's say on average it even takes, you know, like up to 15. Like 15, we're really rounding up, but I would say they're going to take 2 to 4 minutes. Yeah. You're just touching base. Hey, just checking in. Had any questions? Anything you need to know about real estate? You know, blah, blah, blah. Get my newsletter. Get my invitation to the thing. I'm sending you a magnet. Whatever. We're just touching base. Happy birthday. Hope everything's great. You know, happy house anniversary. Hey, did you get my pop-by gift? Did you get, right? I'm just touching base with them. Building relationship voice to voice. So at 15 minutes per conversation, that's 1 hour per year that I'm going to spend in conversation per contact. So 1 hour per year. Now the average person moves every 7 years.
Still? Is that true?
Yeah, over time it's that. It goes up and down, right? Yeah. But we're just going to say historically it's 7 years. So I'm just going to use that for the sake of math. So 7 years, that means, and again, I'm rounding up, so this math works even when it's 10 years or 8 years, because it all just kind of ends up balancing out. Every 7 years they move, so for 7 years, I'm spending an hour a year on the phone with them just nurturing the relationship. Because there's this whole client cycle, and this is called the nurture cycle. And the nurture cycle can take about 7 to 10 years. And the nurture cycle, I need to have a relationship. 71% of real estate transactions, the client never even interviews a second agent. Why? Because they knew who they were going to use when they're going to use it, because that person had nurtured the relationship or was top of mind at that time. Most people don't stay in touch for 7 years, so it's just the person that's top of mind at that time. So I have 7 hours of nurture over 7 years. 48 hours minus 7 hours over 7 years. And what happens is after that 7 years, they're ready to sell, they're ready to buy, and they call me and they're like, oh my gosh, it's so weird you're calling. We were just talking about buying a house. We were just talking about selling the house. And you're like, more than coincidence. When can I come over? You go to the dining room table and you do what's the most dollar productive thing you can do in this business. The most dollar productive per hour activity is signing contracts. Signing listing contracts, signing purchase contracts. How you doing?
Good. Can I sit for a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Come in. So for 1 hour, I got 48 hours worth of billable work in this transaction, 7 hours of nurture, because everything else is automated, it just had to pay him money. 1 hour at the dining room table, signing my listing agreement, doing my presentation, right? I'm 8 hours in, I'm 8 hours and 7 years into this relationship. And I got 40 hours left. Now out of that 40 hours left, that does not look like whatever I want it to look like. Out of 40 hours left, there's 192 tasks that is done from this 40 hours. It's called contract to close. So 40 hours worth of work. I have this relationship that cycles every 7 years with us, and yet I do 192 of the tasks in like a 2-month period of time. And then for 7 more years, I just nurture doing this. Okay? And then contract to close, and I do 192 tasks in 40 hours worth of work. So 40 hours worth of work, 192 tasks. contract to close. I deposit a check. I deposit money here, but I just keep cycling that again. It's just the point that I deposit money at. But the nurture relationship picks back up and it goes for another 7 to 10 years. And then I deposit a check again, 7 to 10 years, deposit a check again. This is real estate. Right? This is our job. Now, how much of this, if you think about this, the 48 billable hours, what occurs to you on this? A couple of ahas? What stands out to you? Are we thinking differently by looking at it this way? What stands out to you?
It's more of a timeline than thinking transactionally, and that's, I think, where people get hung up.
Well, remember when I said earlier, I said the job, you don't dictate your job.
Right.
Your business goal dictates your job. Your job is just a mathematical equation. Now this is $1 million a year. If I wanted to make $100,000 a year, it's still an equation, right? This is what I have to do, how many times I have to do it, what it pays me, and I make $354 an hour. I just need to divide that, and I need to do those activities. Remember the very beginning when I just 1 hour a day. If I did it for 1 hour a day, if I was intentional, I go, when I do this thing, I make $354 an hour, and if I just did that for 2 hours a day, I make $700 a day. If I did it for 3 hours a day, right, it just keeps going. If I do it for 1 hour a day, you can do the math. And now I know what that thing is that I need to do, and I make this much money. Does that make you think? All of you guys have gone internal, by the way. I can see it on your face, which means you're thinking.
I'm trying to figure out how you figured out how many METs you need in there.
The economic model. The economic model will teach you. It's a 12, based on a 12 to 2.
Okay, 12-2.
Yeah,
That's
12 to 2 ratio.
Okay.
I would also tell you, because remember, we're on the islands,
That's
we're a little
just
worse.
33.
We're not average. If we went 10 to 1. So this number changes, great. Put 1,500 there.
Right.
This is based on historical data.
Well,
This
and
historical data based
plus
on
with our
not
average,
theory,
it's
but what has
58
worked.
sides, not 159.
Now, is the unmets, has it gone down from 80 to 1?
It depends.
It's like,
That's the average. It's 75, 80 to
Average?
1 on average, and I've yet to meet the average person. What I meet are average and below average and above average activities. I've never met an average person, but I've met below average effort. I've met above average effort, and average people just don't exist. I think everyone that I've met in this room so far is like amazing and complete and whole and powerful and capable. And I might meet some below average habits about what you guys do.
I was talking about unmet database.
Yeah.
80 to 1.
So where I'm getting at is that
do we have
Diana
ones?
Kokoska had an 18 to 1 unmet conversion. She just, when she had never met someone, when she met them, it took her 18 strangers to get a contract. It's not 80 to 1. It's Diana Kokoska. She was sharp. She's on her script. She knows it. The average is about 75 to 1.
I was thinking database, like farming.
Well,
That's all.
so a database.
I was thinking a different.
Yeah. So a database is what? Define a database. What is a database? We don't even know our job, right?
You're asking us?
Yeah. What is a database?
Well, I mean, I don't know how to say it actually, but it's a list of people.
It's a list of relationships.
That you.
A database is a list of
with.
relationships, and if you want to go even deeper, I'd say it's a list of relationships organized and classified in a way that's easily accessible. Right? Like Facebook is a database. It's just a list of relationships.
It's information.
A CRM, it's information. Okay?
Because there's different kinds
Yeah.
of databases.
Yeah. What is the intention of a database?
To build relationship and stay in touch and contact.
Yeah,
and
kinda. But why?
And generate business.
The intention of a database is to have a client base.
Yeah.
And a client base is a group of people who routinely pay for my services. So a client base, like any of you, Starbucks, we're a client base. We routinely pay for their services. We're a client base,
Yeah.
right? If you drink Diet Coke, if you drink, whatever, Nike, you're a client, you're a customer. Yeah, I'm a brand. Like, how many of you guys have iPhones? How many of you have Samsungs? Like, we just keep buying the same phone because we're part of their client base. So the intention of a database is to build a client base,
Gotcha. Yeah.
right?
Agreed.
It's not to just build a database. Some people think,
there's lots.
like, I go, hey, what's your job? They're like, call people all day long. I'm like, no, your job is to close contracts. But yeah, you got to do those things, right? The intention of a database is to create a client base. It's just an act two. When you have a database, it creates the power, then the focus. How much of this, so we're going to think a little higher, our awareness, how much of this, these hours, if we're thinking like CEO, we're thinking at the highest level, that's a lot of money. And if we hired a really, really, really great admin, how much of this can be done by an admin?
A lot of it.
Almost all of it. In fact, I would suggest if you follow the model, all of it can be done by someone else if you pay them. Gary Keller is not telling us what to do in this office. He's got a system, but he's making money from this office because he's got a business that creates leverage and all that, right? However, if I'm in our shoes and I need to hire my first assistant and all that, a really good assistant is going to cost me what on the item? Really good assistant.
50 grand a year, I'd say.
50 grand. Okay, so how much per hour? What does that end up being?
20.
25 an hour, 20? Okay. So $25 an hour for a really good assistant. And let's say that really good assistant is able to take 35 hours of these tasks off of my plate. Picking up the keys, running the comms, doing all this stuff, putting up the sign, all this stuff. So they do 35 hours. So I make $354 an hour, and I pay my assistant $25 an hour. How much do I make now?
325.
What's the math? 325?
329.
329.
So when I pay an assistant $25 an hour, I make $329 an hour, and I don't have to do all those tasks, right? Pretty good money. Is that 5% consciousness of thinking? You guys think you're there yet?
Getting there.
Okay, so we still missed it. We're not quite there. Because what we didn't realize in our thinking is that by giving up those hours, this number changes.
I'm there in my thinking, I'm just not there in the
So,
physical.
you know, this person's going to do 35 hours worth of work. There's only 48 billable hours. So this 329 or 25 times the 35 hours that I'm going to work, they're going to work for me. What is that?
Good at math.
Per file. $25 an hour, $35 an hour.
Yeah.
$800?
750. Let's call it 750. Or
We're thinking like CEO, so I want to know what it is.
875.
$875 per transaction. What a crime. So now I'm paying, so this is a cost of sale because I'm a business owner and I think differently. So it's actually 17,000 minus 875 is what? It's 16,000.
$16,125.
125? It's a cost of sale, so it moves our cost basis from $17,000 in commission minus the $875 per file that we do to $16,000. Now this is our new net gross company dollar, not commission because it's company, it's revenue for us. It's our company dollar. $16,125 now divided with what I have left is 13 hours worth of work. 16,125 divided by 13.
It's $12.40 and 38 cents.
How many people can't afford an assistant? Because when you hire an assistant and you think differently, you go from making $354 an hour to making $1,240 an hour.
if you don't have one, you are one.
And if you don't have one, you are one. Well, why is it that I'm not working for that? Because I'd rather work for this. So I am the assistant. I'm going to do my own input. I'm going to do my own comms. I'm going to do, I'm doing my own bookkeeping. I know. Right? Like it's.
Can you do that last calculation again, how you got the 1240?
Okay, so I got 192 tasks.
Yes.
My assistant's going to handle the contract to close.
Yes.
35-hour billable hours takes that. So 35 billable hours that they take off my times of 25 gives me 875. I make 17,000 per file.
Right.
I take that off of that and gives me 1625. What I'm left with as the CEO of my business is I still choose, because I only have one admin, I still choose to do all the face-to-face stuff. So is my admin setting all this stuff up and paying that bill? Yep, I don't even touch that stuff. It doesn't hit my plate. It just happens automatically. You're getting emails, you're getting postcards, you think they're for me, just happening. I have had assistants that are left-handed and they're women. I'm like, perfect, because ugly left-handed girl writing looks like really neat guy writing. So I'd have her write my handwritten note cards. Because it look guy's writing, it's left-handed girl writing, right? Sends out my thank you cards, handwritten notes and all this stuff, right? All I did was this. I make 7 hours worth of calls over 7 years to nurture the relationship, because that's what's most important, is that when they think of real estate, they think of me. Then the transaction, the dining room table happens, and I go on that appointment. And I close that deal, because until I can afford to pay someone better than me to do that appointment, I'm going to keep going on it. And then, so I'm 8 hours in. I'm going to keep 5 hours of face-to-face transaction during the contract to close. So I already went on the dining room table, the listing appointment. I'm going to go on the disclosure appointment, so I'm going to either bring them to the office or go to their office, and I sit with them for 1 hour, signing disclosures, doing opening escrow, doing all that. That's an hour. I meet with them, let's say in the middle, I do a total of an hour of like explaining processes of what's going on, updates, who showed the house, and all that. So that's another hour of conversations. I meet with them one more time to kind of explain like and negotiate what the terms of the end of the contract, whether it's repairs or whatever, right? So I'm with them another hour. I go to any inspections or walkthroughs and things like that, that's another hour. And then I go to the appointment where we like hug and take pictures and exchange keys and the closing. So I got 5 hours of face-to-face time that I keep from contract to close, and I got 8 hours of that nurture. I have 13 hours worth of work that I do of the 48 billable hours of a real estate transaction cycle. I have 13 hours. Now eventually I can hire someone to do those even further. We call them team leaders, by the way. Colette has turned and said, I don't have 48 hours a week to give to this office. I'm going to hire someone, I'm going to pay them a salary and bonuses, and you're going to work for 40 hours a week. They're like, well, what are you going to do? I'm going to show up once a month, spend like 2 hours in here, and have my leverage do all the rest. And it works. Why? Because it's a model, right? It's a business model. So I'm keeping 13 hours worth of work that I choose to keep because I think differently. It's all the face-to-face time. I pay someone to do it at a very high level, $25 an hour. I'm paying them really, they're happy, they're with me. I'm even bonusing at the end of the year or whatever, right? Now, what is the rest of my time? So if I did this, I'm only working, if I closed one transaction per week, which is about what it would take for you to hit this number here, I have 13 hours worth of work per week statistically to do. What would I do with all the rest of the time? Because remember, in that 13 hours is also this. So I'm already lead generating. I'm nurturing my database and all that. What I would do is a couple of things. Number one is I might go out there and be prospecting my way to getting to this number. Because if I don't have 954 Mets, I got to go out there and meet some people to get to there. After I meet them, I can nurture their relationship to a transaction. But I got to meet them. So I only work for 13 hours a week, and I'm making $1 million a year. So in the extra hours I have, I'm going to go out there and meet more people. Maybe I do that for 5 or 10 hours. I don't do it very much. I'm just doing whatever I want to do. But let's just say that only gets to about 20 hours a week, which is really what it takes. What do I do with all the rest of the time? I'm only working about 15, 20 hours a week. I'm making $1 million a year. What do I do with all the rest of the time I have? Whatever you want. Go live your life. Go surf, go scuba, go whatever. Go live your life. That's what it's for. You did your job. You got the $1 million. Now go do whatever the heck you want. That's what this money is supposed to do. People keep thinking, well, I'll do more. I'll do more. I'll do more. I'm like, it's not about more. It's about thinking strategically so that you think like a CEO and you leverage this. I'm working for $1,200 an hour now. I work 12 hours a week, 13 hours a week. I make $1 million. Life is good. So what do? I work, remember the beginning? I get up 1 hour earlier each day. Or, said differently, I'm incredibly intentional at least 1 hour a day. And in that 1 hour, I make 20 contacts. I'm doing this thing. Like, I'm doing these things because they pay me $1,200 an hour. And then I do whatever I want for the rest of the day. I just do whatever. And I make $1 million. Does that make you think different? Any ahas around that?
Makes good sense.
Waiting for the green light.
Yeah. So we talked about this. I kind of combined it with the top performers know their numbers, the run the business habit. What they're doing is everything that I just did, they're actually blocking and creating a habit. Like Gary Keller, how often do you think he's looking at his P&L?
Every day.
He looks at it every day. He carries it around with him every single day. How often are you guys doing these numbers with your business? Calculating out what it is you should be doing, how it, right? You just did it like once a year?
I have
You do business planning?
every, 3 weeks, but half the time I
Yeah.
move it.
And what would it do for your business if you were just focusing on that? You had a habit of just like checking in on the numbers
No
once a
matter
week,
what.
once a day.
Yeah,
5 minutes a day. You just looked at the numbers. Yeah. Have you ever worked a job where you work a cash register? Like, does your boss like let you count out the drawer and money drops like once a week or once a month? No, you got to do it like every day, every shift, every amount of money, right?
Track and measure.
In fact, yeah, when I was a cashier, we would get written up if we were $2 under or $2 over. Even if we made them more money, we got written up. $2 variance.
Yeah.
So you had to know your drawer. You had to be accurate. Why is our business any different? We don't track it.
We don't. For some reason, in the 50s, real estate it just wasn't treated like a business. It's just now starting to get to where people.
And most realtors still don't treat it like a business.
No.
I suggested earlier, most
90%.
realtors don't even know what their job is.
Right.
This is your
Right.
job. This is what you do. Your job, you're running that register and you're like, I don't count the money. I don't know the numbers. I don't know whatever. I'm just, it's all good. And that's our job. This is, and most successful people, it's a habit. It's so ingrained in them they can't shut it off. We don't like have to goal plan to brush our teeth every day. It's now a habit, right? Successful agents, Gary Keller, they don't have to like time block to check their numbers. They don't have to time block to do their P&L. It's just a habit. They're just doing it. They run it like a business. Right? So the personal development habit. So we talked about all these numbers, these dollar per hour activities. I told you the highest dollar per hour activity that you can do in your business is signing a contract, right? And the reason why I include the 1 hour with the 7 hours is because this pays you the most amount of money, but without these 7 hours of nurture, you kind of don't get to the dining room table. So I lump these together. I say this is the last thing you're going to give up in your business, the 8 hours of relationship. I'm going to nurture you for 7 years, and I'm going to meet you at the dining room table, and that's those 8 hours worth of work is the last thing I'm going to give up. I'll even give up all of the work, contract to close. Someone else goes on the appointment. That's how my team runs. I do not go on listing appointments. I do not go on inspections. I don't touch files. I don't know where they are. My team does everything. The part I keep is this right here. I maintain the relationships. I'm a brand. I'm talking and marketing to my people, so when they think of real estate, they think of me. I tell them I'm a real estate economist. You guys writing that out? So that's number one. The highest dollar per hour activity you can do in this business is signing contracts. The second one is getting price reductions, which again is signing contracts, taking listings, pricing them to where they're sold. The third most dollar per hour activity you can do, the highest dollar per hour activity, is showing homes to ready, willing, and able buyers. So a buyer that's ready to go, pre-qualified, ready, willing, and able in their price range, that's the third. Number four is actually being learning this. It's self-improvement. It's doing what you guys are doing right now. So going through and learning something new and practicing, you look at, Gary Keller says, successful people, they plan, they practice, they perform. And it makes me think of like Tom Brady, right, who's like this great quarterback, arguably the greatest ever to play. And he said in an interview recently, he was talking about how much he plans and practices and so on. He said in the game, he actually only plays the game for about 15 minutes a week. Because, the clock's running between plays, the defense is on the field. He's only playing for about 15 minutes. During the week, though, how many hours do you think Tom Brady puts into planning? Just watching film and meeting with coaches and strategies and all this stuff, right? What makes him actually so great is that he can read defense. Like, you cannot surprise Tom Brady. He knows what you're going to do before you're going to do it because he's put so much time into preparation. He's known as a fanatical studier. And so he knows every defense and all the plays and how they run it and their tells and all this stuff. So he can read the defense and he knows what they're going to do and he knows what he's going to do in reaction to it. There's better throwers of the football. There's better athletes to play his position, but nobody outthinks him in his position, so he's the GOAT. And how many hours a week do you think he does that? 20, 30 hours a week just planning. And then he's got to go and meet with his team. And they got to practice it. Okay, we're playing the Ravens. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to run this play. We're going to practice this. We're going to practice this is what they like to do. This is how we're going to do it. And they practice it. And they probably practice it for another 10 or 20 hours. And then everything else is like he stretches for 2 hours a day. He's got personal chefs. And he's eating right. He's going to the gym, doing all these other things. But he's probably planning and practicing for 40 or 50 hours a week to play for 15 minutes. And yet, how successful is he? It's like 40, 50 hours to 15-minute ratio of playing in the game. Learning based, planning, performing, practicing, right? How much of that are we doing? And do we have a habit around it? The relationship strengthening habit. You know, we talked about this earlier. I'll just kind of skip through it, but it's, you know, building relationships. You guys, happiness and laughter, joy, that's all a choice. You know, are we focused on building relationships? If you haven't figured it out yet, by the way, this is a relationship business. What people think of you matters in this business. Like, it matters not only what your clients think of you, it matters what co-brokes think of you. It matters what lenders think of you. I know agents will do whatever it takes to advise their, like, oh my gosh, what can we do to not write an offer on this agent's house? Like, could you imagine? Like, there's agents, there's great salesmen working against you instead of working for you.
Sales prevention team.
The sales prevention team. What if everyone on the island thought, oh my gosh, when I'm in a transaction with you, it's the most amazing, like they're fighting, like, yes, take her offer, she's amazing. Every lender in town thought that, every escrow officer in town thought, every title officer, every co-broker, they were like, oh my gosh, it's huge. I would guarantee you it's good for a handful of transactions a year, just having your counterparts think you're amazing, let alone your clients. By the way, when you go to compete against someone, what are they going to say when they know you're amazing? Do you think your clients might pick it and they're like, hey, what do you think of Rob? And they're like, Rob's great. I get it. You want to go with Rob? I get it. He's great. You're in good hands. You know, I'll be your second choice, right? It's like they're just gonna know. You know, it's gonna be like the whole Mike Tyson thing. People used to lose the fight before they even walked in the ring. He was already in their head. You know, that's how we're gonna like, you're meeting with Rob. Never mind, we don't have to even meet. Mastering the time habit. Okay, so I did this exercise earlier. If I told you earlier, I started off the day by saying, we teach a method called time management. Anytime you see the word time, or you use the word time, I want you guys to replace it with the word priority. And I want you to say priority instead of saying time, and see how the sentence sounds. So, you know, let's say I've got a health goal, and you're like, Rob, how's the gym coming along? I'm like, I don't have enough time for that right now. How would I say that differently using that word?
I'm not making that priority right now.
I don't have priority for that. I don't have priority for that.
I need to make it a priority. I want to make it a priority.
Priorities are priorities. Either they're a priority or they're not. Try. Yeah, it's like either they're a priority or they're not. It's amazing how fast I would find a way to get back to California if I found I won lotto. I'd be like, I gotta go, you guys. I got a private jet. I'm picking them up. I'd find a way back. Like, that just became my priority. I got $100 million waiting for me, but I gotta get back home. Office is gonna close. It just became a priority. Time management is about identifying, knowing my priorities, and putting them in that order. Choosing, it's like having a life by design. Any time you're saying, because time's just a belief, it's just a construct, it's back to this whole thing. Time's just a belief system. It's just a way of thinking. There's no such thing as time. There's only now. Right? There is never tomorrow. There's no yesterday. It's just now. So time is a construct. So average performers hate Mondays, call Wednesdays hump days, and thank God it's Friday. Top performers each day love each day and live in the now. Top performers understand they cannot manage time. They can only manage activities, their priorities. Right? They can only manage with their time. You know, if I had, let's say, instead of flying back today and canceling this class or whatever, if I had, you know, picked up my winnings yesterday for the lottery because I prioritized it, now I'm here, am I like so much more free to teach this class? Absolutely. My energy would probably be a little higher. Got it? The 8th habit is they're a talent scout. And again, I set the foundation for this, but they're constantly looking for the best version of people. When they look at people, they don't look at people for what's wrong. They look at people with what's possible. You know, imagine if we looked at everyone we met the way that we would look at our you know, if we were a 3rd grade teacher and we were talking to our children in our classroom, we're like, what do you want to be when you grow up? You know, and do little kids think big or do they think small?
Big.
They think big. You know, a bunch of third graders aren't like, well, I'm hoping to be the, you know, the night clerk at Costco. They don't think that. They're like, well, you know, one day I'm going to work for, you know, the city, and I'm going to put up power lines and stuff like that. You know, they're like, I'm going to be a cop. I'm going to be an astronaut. I'm going to be a fireman. They think big. I think really, really big. We learn to think small because we've, you know, been taught by our parents and all that stuff. But if, as a third grade teacher, what is my job? Like, I'm going to get them to think bigger. And that teacher goes, you know, Mrs. Smith, do you really think I could be a pilot? I'm like, of course, Johnny. Like, you can be anything you want to be when you grow up. If you just put your mind to it, you focus, you can be anything. We're going to encourage it. What if we just looked at all these adults that are around us and still thought the same way? It's like, listen, Susie, like, you can be whatever you want to be. It's just your choice.
That's why I like new agents. They're uncontaminated.
Yeah. I ask adults all the time, my favorite question, one of my favorite questions in a recruiting appointment, and I'll ask people that are, you know, seasoned, they've been around a long time, they think they're in the back nine or something like that. I'll say, what do you want to be when you grow up? They're like, when I grow up? I'm like, well, what I mean is, do you feel like you've reached your fullest potential? Is the very best day of your life, the happiest day, the most fulfilling day, the very best day of your life, has it already happened or is it still ahead of you? And they're like, I want to say it's still ahead of me. I'm like, okay, so we got something to create then. You know, now if you've given up on life, you're like, oh, that's way below me. You know, that's way back there. It's all downhill from here, Rob. I'm like, cool, thank you for that. I have clarity that you're not the type of person I'd like to be in business. I think you'll find that we're really not a fit here at Keller Williams because we're pretty abundant. We want to believe, whether it's an illusion or not, the very best day of our life is still ahead of us. That we're still able to create that very best day. And that yesterday was just the remember when. Remember when that was our best day ever, and now we created the new one? Like, my intention today is that today's the very best day of my life, or it's tomorrow, or whatever. I'm always creating that, and I'm one-upping that last very best day of my life. What if I looked at other people for that? As I'm looking at you, I look as a talent scout. I look at what's possible for each one of you. Not what's wrong, not what you're not doing, not what you're bad at and everything. I'm just like, wow, what's possible for you? Like, what do you want to be when you grow up? What's the very best day of your life look like? What does your life look like? And how can I create, like, how can we use you? Okay, great, you're not this person. Great, what are you? Let's figure that out. Each one of us has been blessed with this amazing gift and talent from God, and we don't even know what it is sometimes. We just have to identify it. It makes us all unique and powerful in all different ways. So I'm just a lead generating. I'm just a talent scout. I'm just finding out how you're unique and how you're unique. And let's find that out, because I want to benefit from it too. Here's how I'm unique. How are you unique? Let's find that out. By the way, you start to happen to come across leaders, and all of a sudden you start surrounding yourself with these people, and you've got these amazingly talented people all around you, and life gets a lot easier. Let me just tell you, my life is way easier because I have an amazing mother for a wife. Like, I kind of mail it in sometimes. You know, I'm able to be a great dad because she's a great mom, and I just kind of show up and do dad stuff. It's cool. I've got talent. They're always on the lookout. They're creating a culture that attracts talent. Right? Like, they're developing from within.